I presume by that you're meaning tracks like Hot on the Heels of Love, which seems to me to be within the Kraftwerk type of vein.
Yes,
very light, very bouncy, very electronic and crisp.
Yeah, it was deliberately so. I mean, in a way, Jazz Funk Greats is a compilation of our favourite types of music. You know, it's completely indulgent. And Persuasion may not sound like it to other people, but that's my version of Frank Sinatra cabaret music. And Hot on the Heels of Love is a mixture of Sparks and Giorgio and Kraftwerk, which we like, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And we thought it'd be nice to do one, banal, simple, but fun. There's no reason why we can't do silly things alongside more serious things. And the track, Exotica, is actually named after Martin Denny's LPs, who used to do Hawaiian cabaret music in the 50s and had quite a lot of hits in America. And he did a set of LPs called Exotica Volume 1, 2 and 3 with really tacky women on the front, looking kind of supposedly glamorous in oriental outfits. And a friend of ours in Los Angeles turned us on to his music, and we loved it. It was kind of cabaret, but weird. Every now and then it was totally illogical, and we really liked it. And we bought the vibes because of him. So we called one of the tracks after him as an oblique clue to another thing. You know?
20 Jazz Funk Greats is a lovely title for an album, and somehow or other one expects 20 Jazz Funk Greats only to realise that it's the first track on the album. It's the shades of that little joke of putting your hit on the previous album and getting it over and done with in 18 seconds by playing it at 10 times the speed.
Yes, we have to own up to that. Mischief. It is Mischief. It was I thought of the title, in fact. A year before we made the LP, I said it would be nice to do one called that. And eventually we did when the moment seemed right. And the back of the cover was actually inspired by Bookends by Simon and Garfunkel.
And what about the front of the cover?
Well, that was that's an interesting one, because a lot of people haven't noticed. Well, they couldn't notice the joke or whatever in that. For a start, people were trying to lay a very bleak, industrial, dark, sombre image on us with buildings and things. So we decided it had to be in the countryside, because, strangely enough, that would be more irritating than anything else we could do to make it nice. But we chose Beachy Head, and we stood right by the cliffs on Beachy Head, because that's a famous beauty spot, but also famous for suicides. People jump off. And also, Aleister Crowley is one of the few people who, in his awkward manner, climbed up and managed to, without any...
Huge Aleister Crowley height.
Yeah. He was one of the very first people to ever climb up it with no sort of mountaineering gear. And it kind of appealed to me that when everyone else was jumping down, he had to climb up. And people always said we never smiled, so I know I'm not really smiling, because I was trying very hard.
No, you're not smiling, but Chris positively looks ecstatic, doesn't he?
And it amuses to think that there we were smiling in flowers, everyone says how nice, and actually we're smiling where people who are totally in despair commit suicide. So it had the usual double edge to it.
This eternal double edge that seems to be so much a product of TG, is that you, or is that everybody in the group?
I think it's everybody, actually. I mean, it's certainly very essentially part of me, but probably the reason we're all together is because it's the only thing we all agree on. The two things we agree on are the sound of the records and the fact that we want to be awkward. I am one of the injured. Dissolving like an injured dog. Like wasted limbs get smaller. Pain is a stimulus of pain. But then, of course, nothing is cured. This is the world now. Move a pin and the world turns. Sit in a chair and pictures change. Try to eat us. Get trapped. Or injured.
When we actually construct what Throbbing Gristle play and who Throbbing Gristle are and who the members of the band are, that there is a willful aversion as far as commercial success is concerned. What I'm suggesting is that there are tracks on 20 Jazz Funk Greats that, given the current climate and interest in electronic music, if lifted off and if packaged in a certain way, and if Genesis P-Orridge was deleted and Throbbing Gristle was deleted and somebody said this is, you know, Ultravox or something similar, then enormous commercial success could occur. I mean, I really do think Hot on the Heels of Love is a very good example, and there's one other track on the album, I think, on that side as well. Is it Walkabout?
Oh yeah, that's the Chris Electro musical one.
Right. See, both of those are strongly commercial. Now, why resist that commercial temptation?
Because we know we can do it, so it's not interesting. And it shouldn't be a motivation.
It should be a consequence rather than
It should be an accidental consequence, not a motivation, as far as we're concerned.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, sometimes we get a bit peeved because somebody like Gary Newman says to John Savage that he was inspired to get synthesizers by our single United. And other groups that are doing quite well, actually, even like Public Image. We know they came to see us before they ever made a record. And they get 3 pages when they buy exactly the same synthesizer that Chris uses. And they've now said they're going to start using video, which we've been using for quite a while. And when they do it, it's a big deal and it's fantastic and a breakthrough. And when we've been doing it for 3 or 4 years, nobody's interested in the media. But all the other groups come and watch. We know they do. They actually tell us. A certain ratio rang me up and said, after seeing us play, they got 2 trumpets and a space echo so they could copy our trumpet sound. And how did we get the delays on my voice? Because they wanted to use it on a record. You know, and Cabaret Voltaire have also now bought binaural equipment, a video machine, and a Roland synthesizer and a Roland drum machine like ours, and they said it was because they like the ones we use. So we kind of work almost like a research lab that everyone else rips off and makes money out of. And when you're feeling fed up and you've got no money to go and get something to eat, you think, well, it's not fair. But at the same time, we wouldn't change because we do have very, very strong feelings about motivation. Love is the law, love is the law, Love is love, love is love, united, 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 you and I, you and I, united. Time will feel, time will feel, time will feel, we are everywhere. There is no one, there is no time anymore. Let's go, united, united. Peter Gabriel bought all our records and actually said to Sleazy that it was us telling him about that drum machine that inspired all his new music. And he invited us to his house to play on his computerized synth as a kind of thank you, which we haven't done yet, but we will. And yet, he says that to us, but when he does his interview for you, none of these people will go out. It's very weird, you know?
Yes,
they won't go out in print because it might not be hip. It might be a bit uncool. And also, you know, Peter Gabriel saying that actually the idea came from Throbbing Gristle, that's a bit, you know, it might detract a hell of a lot from all this adulation he's getting at the moment. I mean, I think he's wrong because he did what he did with it, and it doesn't matter really. But I think it would be nice if people were prepared to come out with things like that, you know. David Bowie goes on the radio in California playing our records and saying we're the most interesting group in England at the moment. But he doesn't come to see us when he's here. He doesn't sort of ring up and say so, or tell the music press that. He does it in California where nobody in England can hear about it. And John-Jacques Burnell plays the whole of Jazz Funk Greats on Japanese radio in Tokyo. But he never rings us up. You know, I mean, it's a very strange relationship we have with them, where if
Why
it's
do you
abroad,
think that
they're
is? Why do you think it is?
I think that when I'm feeling optimistic about what we're doing, I think the reason is they're terrified of us. Because if we can influence that many people on that level by our throw-offs, what would happen if we got access to everything they've got access to? Right? If we had access to the media on the scale they do, to studios on the scale they do, to films and magazines, I mean, we could become a worldwide corporation and really blow things apart. And I think that scares them.
Why don't you do that?
So far, they've been intelligent enough to prevent us. I mean, it would be an accident if we broke through, but if we could break through on that scale, it's always on the cards.
See, I mean, the temptation is to look at a record company like Virgin with the vast publicity machine that operates behind it and the distribution network and the sales staff and everything that would push a Throbbing Gristle record and the capacity to get you a centre page spread in all of the music papers. Why not?